Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insights on the Nasdaq-100 index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed on Nasdaq. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining us this Friday afternoon, we have Ben Jones, Senior Specialist with Index Research and Development at Nasdaq Investment Intelligence, to discuss Nasdaq-100 performance and the newest addition to the Nasdaq-100 family, in addition to your family. Congratulations, Ben.
Thank you.
Let's start with the latest addition to the index and some background on the company's journey from IPO to today. I was there for the IPO, and it was an incredible moment.
Yeah, it's been an exciting week for the Nasdaq-100. There's a new addition to the Nasdaq-100 family, and that company is Crowdstrike. It joined the Nasdaq-100 yesterday on Thursday, August 26th. It replaced Maxim, the symbol MXIM, which was acquired by Analog Devices, which is the reason for this change. The change really doesn't change the complexion of the index from an industry exposure standpoint. It's kind of like a like-for-like change in terms of swapping one technology name in for another. Certainly, there's differences from a subsector standpoint, right? Which is, I think, what we're going to talk about today and what is so exciting. In this case, we see a semiconductor chip maker moving out of the Nasdaq-100, in the addition of a software company, but really a pure play company in the cybersecurity theme. And if you look at what is really interesting about this addition, is that I think it represents two things that really define the index. First, it's another example of the Nasdaq-100 adding another company that really represents innovation and growth, and really Crowdstrike defines that just with its journey over the last couple of years. And then I think what's also important in this day and age is that this world is changing, and something that's been in the news lately is all these hacks, and so we have a pure play cybersecurity company coming into the mix. So if we look at the journey of Crowdstrike over the last couple of years, you can see just how well it's performed and how it's just been a leader. For those of you who don't know Crowdstrike, it's a leading provider of cloud-based cybersecurity services, ranging from endpoint protection to threat intelligence and cyber attack response services. They've investigated some of the probably the most noteworthy cyber attacks in recent years. Founded in 2011, a rather large company, but not massive, about 62 billion in market cap. And if you look at how it's performed really over the last few years, you can see it's up over 300%. Last year, it had a banner year. You can see from an R&D standpoint, over 214 million in R&D expense. I mean, that just means that they are investing for the future. Plenty of free cash flow. Top line looks great, right? Revenue, fiscal year 2021, 874 million. So you're seeing some strength there. I definitely want to point out something is that, they are acquiring companies, right? So they are engaged in thinking about the future and making the company stronger. They acquired Humio earlier this year, which strengthens their extended detection and response capabilities. And that's a buzzword right now in the cybersecurity industry, because what this means, it just goes beyond just the endpoints. It actually brings in cybersecurity across all different applications and networks and servers and all different areas of a business, really extending the range, so to speak. So that's another reason why Crowdstrike is so noteworthy today, and quite a buzzworthy stock as well.
Right, it certainly is, Ben. And let's take a look at cybersecurity performance overall in 2021. I mean, this week itself was pretty monumental when we had President Biden meeting with a number of Nasdaq-100 companies, Apple, Amazon, and other industry leaders on cybersecurity and the private and public sectors, how they can potentially work together and who's responsible for what. So cybersecurity just really has had a banner year for 2021 in terms of becoming more mainstream and more on top of everyone's minds.
It is. I mean, just look at the headlines. It is the year of cybersecurity, and I know I put that out there. But if you just look at what has happened, since COVID-19 and the pandemic, and what we've been experiencing, everyone working from home, and then all the ransomware attacks that we've experienced this year. We had the SolarWinds breach the end of 2020. Every person really around the world is basically impacted, right? And you have seen basically, private and public organizations having to come together. You saw Biden, pass the executive order earlier this year to really enhance and stabilize and strengthen the U.S. cybersecurity policy. You've seen Biden meet with some leaders in tech, as you mentioned. Some large public companies like Google is now pledging tons of investment into this space, but it's not just a U.S. phenomenon, as I was alluding to. The European Union is having to adjust and change, and they just created a rapid response cybersecurity team to kind of provide some collective security. And you've just seen it come from the private and the public space, and it's impacted industries, organizations. In France, you've seen most hospitals, they were breached last year through cyber attacks. So it's ongoing, and I think this is why CrowdStrike Edition is so relevant today, because you can argue 2021 has been the year of cybersecurity, and has certainly been one of the top headlines out of everything else going on this year.
Yeah, excellent point that you bring up there, Ben. Let's wrap up with your last couple of charts here and take a look at the numbers, cybersecurity performance.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about CrowdStrike, we talk about how, we've seen a lot of hacks and breaches, this year. A lot of these cybersecurity company names have rallied in response to that. And you have seen some positive performance, relative to, let's say, the market benchmarks. CrowdStrike has been the outperformer. So what you see in this chart is basically the names, the 6 cybersecurity companies that are in the Nasdaq-100, range from Okta to Splunk, Checkpoint, Cisco, VeriSign. CrowdStrike being really a pure play, Cisco more of a conglomerate. But CrowdStrike is up over 63% since the SolarWinds breach in the beginning of December 2020. So kind of like a year to date with a few weeks in there, but just showing you how they've responded since that breach. Almost every name is in positive territory. You can see Cisco, a large player in the space, up 36% since that SolarWinds breach. Now, if you look at the past 3 months, which is the next slide, you can see that, really 2 names that are focused in this area, CrowdStrike and Splunk, are the 2 best performing names. CrowdStrike has really rallied over the last few days, especially with the news of going into the Nasdaq-100. You do see that VeriSign has struggled over the last 3 months, but nothing too negative, right, or too worrisome at this point in time. But I think the key is as we've seen these cybersecurity headlines, the breaches, the attacks, the investment, the coming together, so to speak, of the public and private sphere, and just the amount of investment in this, the discussion of investment in this space has certainly, I think, made the market interested in what these companies are doing, and you've seen their share prices respond to that in the last few months.
All right, Ben. Appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.